Hi. Don't adjust your screen or your mobile device. I am not Paul or Todd. My name is Nate, and I am another tall car enthusiast on this program. You might be asking yourself, does Everyday Driver really need another tall car enthusiast? Especially one right now driving a Scion FRS. Not really. No. They've got that covered pretty nicely. But over the years, some of you have been asking about motorcycle content on Everyday Driver. And lucky for you and me, I'm equally into motorcycles as I am the cars. So, welcome to my garage. This segment of the show is going to be called The Cycle Report. And we're going to cover motorcycle reviews, maybe some gear, adventures, trips, and anything else you want to see. Leave in the comments and I'll try to cover what you guys want to see in this channel. So once again, welcome to the Cycle Report. When people say Ducati, the first thing that comes to mind is a motorcycle that looks at home on the racetrack. Sleek bodywork. Generally speaking, they're red, have tons of power, hugely uncomfortable, and are just made to put out lap times and give a visceral experience. What you don't picture is this. What is this, you might ask? It's called the Hyperstrada, and it's sort of in the hypermotard range of Ducati's lineup. About 10, 12 years ago, started toying with the idea of a supermoto inspired street bike. KTM was kind of the first to do it with their their 950 Supermoto, and then later their 990 Supermoto. And Ducati quickly followed with the original Hypermotard. That is the predecessor to this bike. But the formula is basically the same. You get a fairly lightweight for a street bike package, about 100 horsepower, a torquey V-twin. I mean, technically Ducatis are L-twins because they're 90 degrees, but same difference. And dirt bike, motocross inspired styling. Going from a Hypermotard to a Hyperstrada, they just wanted to gain range. So this seat is a little more comfortable. The ergonomics are a little bit improved with a slightly higher handlebar. It's got a pretty decent little windshield, and it comes with removable luggage. That's right, removable luggage on what essentially came from total toy lineage. The switchgear is nice. There's design built into almost every part. So while it's not exactly a supermodel, it's built with the same attention to detail as any Ducati would be. Jumping up to something a little bit more prestigious than your typical Suzukis or Kawasaki's. European bikes have that aspirational feel that, while doesn't really matter on paper, has a sense of ownership and a pride of ownership that not that many Japanese bikes can match. It's about 100 horsepower, and it's nice and linear with a little bit of bump, or around 6,500 RPM, that you can feel that it feels great. Because it pulls really cleanly with a lot of torque, and you're like, this is great, and then it hits that last little bit and it gives you more than you expected. It's not my bike. I'm not going to do any wheelies. There are faster motorcycles than this, but let me put this into perspective. This thing weighs about 440 pounds or so, which is pretty light for a street bike. And with a little over 100 horsepower, you're looking at like low to mid 11-second quarter mile. So, let's see. It's pretty quick. And apparently I lied, because I did just get the front wheel up a little bit. Sorry. It handles so well, and it reminds me of kind of a giant BMX bicycle. You know, you can just flick it around. like anything. It tracks in, it turns in so quickly, and it dives into turns. It's just fun. The seating position is such that you're kind of right on top of the bars, and it gives you a feeling sort of like a motocross bike, something very aggressive. The suspension's got enough travel that you can go over some bumps and hop curbs a little bit, and it still retains a lot of that hooligan nature that a normal supermoto bike does. To take something that's such a toy and turn it into something that's completely usable is quite remarkable. And while this is probably the most unconventional Ducati in their entire lineup, part of me thinks it's the best one too. Now, are there problems? Sure. It's throttled by wire, I believe, because it doesn't feel like much, and the bottom end is very vague. So getting down to the lower rev range and getting down to 2,000-3,000 RPM in a tight turn and then powering out, you kind of don't get a feel for when the power is going to come on, and then it's a little abrupt. Once you kind of get that traction, it's fine. It revs cleanly. There's just not a whole lot of feel. I'm a bigger guy, and this thing is just a little too small for me. I mean, I could ride it. I am riding it, and it's fine, but the riding position isn't perfect, and I don't know how I'd fix it. The truth be told, this is a very small motorcycle. It's really narrow. It's very compact front to back, from where the back of the seat to like the forks are. There's just not a whole lot of room. Anyone under 6 feet tall won't really care, but me at 6'2", I'm starting to get a little cramped. Am I nitpicking? Yes, I am nitpicking. I've ridden a ton of motorcycles, and I get sort of granular if I'm asked for problems, but overall, this is not the kind of thing that anyone would ride and start picking apart and saying things really have any weak points, because it doesn't. It's great. Who's this thing for? Well, that's kind of tricky, because if it wasn't this Strada version, if it was just the regular Hypermotard, I honestly don't know who I could recommend this thing to. There's cheaper ways to have, sort of a goofball bike, and lower maintenance and lower costs and a little bit less something exotic. But once you throw that practicality that this Hyperstrada has over its base model, it can be anything. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate. If it was ergonomically better for me, I wouldn't hesitate to, go across the country in this thing in a few days. Honestly, the best trick that Ducati's done with this machine is take something that is so impractical, add a few little extra parts, and suddenly I think it's one of the best all-around bikes you can get. So would I buy this bike? Quite possibly. This thing is good enough to get to where you want to go and have fun when you're there with really no sacrifice. It also makes a great commuter because it's pretty small, it's nimble, it's light, it's not super cumbersome, and honestly, it just works. For now, I'm gonna go ride some more. Thank you so much for watching the Cycle Report, and I'll see you next time.
You're watching Everyday Driver. We make a TV show, podcast,
and YouTube channels dedicated to great cars, driving adventures, and helping you find a car you'll love.
subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a thing.